I often criticise the Maori Party. Today I am going to target one of the specific individuals who is responsible for the decline of the Maori Party. Rawiri Waititi is one of the co-leaders of the Maori Party. Rawiri is a truly stupid person. He makes Debbie Wapaka look like a genius by comparison. Today I am going to review some notable cases of his appalling stupidity. These examples will range from racist rhetoric to insane foreign policy. I hope to make my case very clear. Rawiri is a deranged idiot and nobody on the left should support him. Anyway, let's get into it.
People's Ministry for Pacific Peoples, all that type of thing. You've never heard that from us once.
I have heard this,
those types of things.
It is a known fact that the Māori genetic makeup is stronger than others.
Well, it's stronger in me, and I've got a whole lot of genetics in me.
That was on your website. Is that racist?
Why? How can it be racist when you're trying to empower people that are climbing out from the bottom of the bonnet of colonial violence for the last 183 years? How is that racist?
I should know that statement has been removed. It is a known fact that the Māori genetic makeup is stronger than others. It was on your sport policy on your website. Well, when you think about the language you've just criticised and you compare that with the language on your own website, can you acknowledge that perhaps your language is contributed to these tensions?
How was that imposed on anybody else? We took it to ourselves.
You're talking to everyone when you publish it on a website, Rawiri.
Going on national television and defending the claim that Maori are genetically superior. Can you imagine something more stupid? Even ignoring the obvious immorality of the point, this is such horrendous optics. This pushes people towards the ACT Party. This kind of rhetoric is David Seymour's biggest asset. It is immoral, it is idiotic, and the excuse-making is just pathetic. Rawiri claims he is not denigrating anyone, he is just trying to uplift people. This is the kind of cheap dodge that a white nationalist would employ. Normalising racism does not uplift anyone. Dragging debates about racial superiority into mainstream political discourse is not even remotely helpful, and it endangers Maori massively. But this is just the beginning. This is something one of Rawiri's social media accounts posted. Look how absurdly racist this is. Claiming that Caucasians are an archaic species that will soon go extinct. It is just comical. Are you trying to make the left look as unelectable as possible? Did David Seymour commission this tweet? Supposedly a staffer who misinterpreted Rawiri's worldview posted this. That was the excuse given. If that is how one of your closest followers interpreted your worldview, clearly something has gone seriously wrong. And it is just another cheap excuse. If David Seymour posted something like this, it would be deemed unforgivable and his political career would be over. But it gets worse still.
One other policy I want to ask about. Earlier this year you announced New Zealand should be militarily neutral, the Switzerland of the South Pacific. So what happens if one of our Pacific neighbours requires military assistance in defending its exclusive economic zone?
We've never been exclusive of the Pacific, so in that policy it makes quite clear that we are that we should be looking after the Pacific as a one. We're all tangata moana, we're all related. And
so does that mean militarily though? That
means whatever we need to do to look after ourselves as the Pacific because we're all related.
So my question is that, for example, if Samoa had some sort of intrusion in its exclusive economic zone and sought New Zealand's assistance to defend it militarily, is that something you would be prepared to support? So it's not really neutral, is it?
Well, not if you don't see the whakapapa.
Rawiri on Jack Tame once again, arguing for a race-based defence policy. Supposedly we should not defend Australia, but we should defend the Pacific because of our racial similarities. That is what he means when he speaks about whakapapa. He is speaking about genetics, he is speaking about race. And this is not just rhetoric, this is his foreign policy. How can a single leftist support this racist garbage? This sounds like something that a fascist would come up with. We will defend other countries, but only if they are our race. Again, imagine if Seymour said the reverse of this. We will defend Australia because they are white, but we will abandon the Pacific because they are brown. His political career would be over, and rightly so. So why the hell does Rawiri get away with saying the same thing? A race-based defence policy, this kind of insanity, should be laughed out of the room. But instead, we see the left embracing this deranged fanatic. Labour is willing to form a coalition with him, the Greens brag about their closeness with him, BHN praises him and adores him. It is pathetic.
Ko tā te minita take aorere, ko tā hirau urua te kau nā hoia, no Aotearoa ka tukunasa ki Ukraine ki te whakangungu i o rātou ake hoia, o whakaro?
Kare whakai atu. Ki te urua te tātou ki roti te pakanga nei. Kare tō tātou take. Kare tō tātou take ki te pakanga nei. Me noho ārero tai aha tata. Me pera pia te kukoro. Me noho ārero tai aha tata. Me i te tātou ki a hui tēni, ki a Sweden. Me noho tātou ki waho pia ke i te pakanga nei. Te rā pakanga, te mau atu a tātou ihu, ki ngā.
According to Rawiri, the Ukraine war is not our business. This is a delusional take. Putin is attempting to create an amoral, might makes right international order. That is very, very bad for a small, weak country like ours. And Putin threatens the peace, stability, and rules of the international order. We do not exist in a void. A peaceful, stable, rules-based order is in our geostrategic and economic interests. That is not an opinion, that is a fact. And how amoral would you have to be to claim a dictatorship attempting to annex a small democracy is not our business. It is revolting. And meanwhile, he speaks about Gaza constantly. What a joke. Rawiri would have us stand by and do nothing. Letting Putin take Ukraine is a strategy of appeasement, and appeasement is a proven failure. You cannot appease a belligerent dictator. And Rawiri pretends to be some great anti-imperialist hero, while demanding that we be neutral on the question of a large dictatorship attempting to annex a smaller democracy. What a joke. But there is yet another example of Rawiri indicating his pro-Putin sympathies.
Benefit to Aotearoa heading into the future. We're talking about China, we're talking about Brazil, we're talking about India, we're talking about Africa. You know, if Ibrahim Traore is starting to kick everybody out, the French, the Americans, from exploiting their raw materials, that makes cobalt, that makes all the things, the devices that we're working on tonight. You know, this is a game changer. This is a game changer. And so Aotearoa needs to be ready to start looking at talking to some of those countries and starting to build those relationships. And I tell you what.
Praising Ibrahim Traore. Ibrahim Traore is a Putin-aligned African dictator. He has close connections to the notorious Russian Wagner Group. He attended Moscow's military parade earlier this year. In the midst of Russia's murderous, imperialist war against Ukraine, Traore met with Putin and repeatedly praised him, desperately seeking his approval. He is among Putin's closest allies. Recently, he criminalized homosexuality, and Rawiri praises this man, all while being worshipped by so-called progressives. What a joke. I suppose Ibrahim Traore is a bit like Rawiri Waititi. He looks left-wing, a young African man in a military uniform wearing a red hat. A Maori man with facial tattoos wearing a big tiki. But being left-wing is about more than aesthetics. And in terms of substance, both of these clowns are greatly lacking. So Rawiri's praise for the dictator makes a lot of sense. It is all about aesthetics, with no regard for substance whatsoever. The left can do better, but the decline continues.
Far enough away from everybody. The Japanese, the Chinese have never, ever threatened Aotearoa. Those are just myths that they use in World War II to make us afraid of those particular countries. And now they could be the biggest economic benefit.
I expected stupidity, but even I was impressed by this. Claiming Japan was never a threat to us, and that this was a myth made up during World War II. Japan was literally operating commerce raiders in our waters. Their ambition was to dominate the Pacific as a brutal imperial power. Had they defeated the US and Australia, they would have come for us. Only an idiot would not recognise that. Such fascist states pursue endless expansion, their greed and bloodlust cannot be satiated. They raped and murdered their way through China, they intended to do the same to Australia, and they would have done the same to us too. Thankfully, our troops and our allies stopped them. And now Rawiri spits on their graves by claiming that Japan was never really a threat. When Japan was a belligerent fascist dictatorship intent on dominating the Pacific as a brutal imperial power. Imagine feeling the need to downplay the threat represented by Imperial Japan. It is totally unhinged. But there is more still.
Well, democracy has changed, that democracy is more nuanced. But what do you think, Rawiri? Is co-governance strictly democratic?
I don't know, because like I said, I tend to stay away from those words because they're actually systems that don't belong to us. And they're not systems that I want to advocate for because it actually works against what Mana Mutaki and actually what the Titi Waititi promised.
That's really interesting, though. So you're saying that democracy as we think about it is not necessarily consistent with Tino Rangatira as promised?
No. I'm not a fan of democracy.
Rawiri openly says he doesn't like democracy. How can you say a thing like that and be treated like a respectable person? It is almost Trump-like. It is like Trump if he was devoid of charisma and impossible to take seriously. I know some leftists tried to defend Rawiri by claiming he simply doesn't understand what democracy is. If you don't understand what democracy is, you aren't fit to be a voter, let alone the leader of a political party. What is this desperate excuse-making? He is a lost cause, abandon him before he drags the entire left down. He makes us look terrible. Rawiri Waititi is trash. He is incredibly dumb. He has absolutely nothing of value to offer the movement. His worldview is idiotic and immoral. He is an embarrassment. He is a disgrace. He is racist and stupid. He has blatant authoritarian sympathies. He should be nowhere near government. Labour should rule him out. How is he the leader of a party? I am assuming iwi connections are the only reason he is leader. That seems like the most logical explanation, because he is grossly unfit for the position. Even Debbie is far more competent than him. She can at least speak without putting her foot straight in her mouth. And if you want a male co-leader, Takuta Ferris would be way better. Rawiri is one of the dumbest people I have ever seen in charge of a political party, and he wouldn't know mana if he tripped over it. The left needs to stop mindlessly following this disgraceful clown. He is an enemy of our movement, he may look the part, but his worldview is disgusting and evil. Vote him out next year.